Our first storyteller of the evening, or the afternoon, is Mark Peugh. Mark, where are you? There you are. Mark, come on up.
But I am a whitewater enthusiast, and I've been doing that for several decades. I've been fortunate enough to be able to raft the Grand Canyon several times, and I'm lined up to do it again in September. I need to give you a little bit of background information. The event that I'm going to tell you about, when I was on that trip, I was alone in my own boat. I've got a 14-foot self-bailer. They do allow 12-foot boats down there, but 14 is pretty small considering the size of the water down there. When I say it's a self-bailer, that means that any water that gets in it automatically sheds out the bottom. A couple of terms that you should be familiar with that I'm going to use: PFD, personal flotation device, otherwise known as a life vest. Okay. Hazards are those things in the river that you want to avoid. It's going to be important that you know the construction of a oar. You've got the handle, the shaft, and the blade. That'll come into play, a little further down the road. A hole is a type of hazard, and holes are typically created by some sort of an obstacle, generally a large rock that either falls from the cliff above, maybe it's washed out from a side canyon in a debris field, and as the water flows and you've got this rock in the water comes up over the top of it so that you've got this rise, and then when you fall down the other side of that, it's a little deeper, a little steeper, and it's usually got a curl wave on the back of it. Small holes, fun, splashy, wet. Big holes, not good. Avoid them. They're hazards. So, for most people, rafting, down the Colorado River is all about adventure. It's all about relaxation. And I can tell you that when I'm doing it and you're sitting there and you're gazing up at the rim about a mile above you, my brain just goes into hyperdrive. And I just think about the length of time that it took to create all this. And it reminds me of the flash of light that my life is in comparison to all this. Keeps me pretty right-sized. It really does. And while, a lot of people come to the Grand Canyon, it's a premier rafting destination on the planet. A lot of people come for the scenery, but I can tell you that the rapids are frequent and they're serious. There's about 80 rapids between Lee's Ferry and Diamond Creek. And my experience has been, if you're not paying attention, any one of them can flip you like a pancake, okay? And all rapids are a little different. All of the hazards can be a little different. Some you got holes, some you got laterals, some you got steep eddy lines, you got other boaters. You got a lot of things to look out for in the rapids, but there's one thing that all of these rapids have in common: water temperature. The Colorado River in the Grand Canyon is fed from the Glen Canyon Dam, and it comes out 300 feet below the surface. And it is an organ-shrinking, eye-popping 43 degrees. And if you happen to find yourself outside the boat, you got a couple of minutes, okay, before your blood flow is directed to your major organs and you lose the use of your arms and legs. And if you haven't rescued yourself by then, you're going to need to be rescued. So having said that, this story is about one of those rapids. You've probably some of you may have heard about Lava Falls. It's one of the more famous rapids in the whitewater world. There's Dubendorf, and there's Bedrock, and there's House Rock. There's a number of them down there. But the one that I'm going to talk about today is at mile 94.2, and it's Crystal Falls. Okay, Crystal Falls is rated 9 on the 10 scale. And if you're wondering how they get a rating on a rapid, there's two factors that come into play. One, what's the degree of oarsmanship it's going to take to successfully run this rapid? And two, what's the price for failure? And when you get to Crystal Falls, the price for failure can be high because it's a long rapid and there's a lot of hazards in the middle of it. There's a gravel bar on the lower right-hand side, but the big hazard with Crystal Falls is a ginormous hole center at the bottom of the rapid. And if you get in that, chances are very, very good that you're going to wind up upside down. So we get to mile 94. We tie up our boats. Any rapid over about a 6, you're going to want to take a look at. And the reason is because these rapids change. Even if I had been down there last year or whatever, these rocks that have fallen in that create these rapids, the currents have a tendency to move them a little bit. Okay, so if you show up a second time at a rapid, you can't run it twice. Because when you get there, the rapid has changed. And so have you. So we're sitting there and we're looking at this rapid as we approach it. You can hear it a long ways before you get there, but as you walk up on it, the power of this rapid is letting itself be known, and we are evaluating it to see which is going to be the better way to run. And on this particular trip, the prescribed run appeared to be to try to cheat the big hole at the bottom by hugging the right bank as best you can. Okay. Getting down beyond the big hole and then entering the current and going from there. The problem with that is that you got your stern up against the side of the river. You hit rocks. You're going downstream. If you lose an oar, the gravity of that hole is still going to suck you in, and that could be a problem. But there was 3 of us that stood up on a big rock, and we looked across the river over at River Left, and it looked like a pretty sweet little run over there. And it looked like, okay, I'm going to have to make a couple of moves, but if I'm successful, this is going to be a fun run. And so we 3 of us decide that that's what we're going to do. We walk back upstream, untie our boats, start floating in towards the rapid. Just a show of hands, has anybody been rafting? Good number of people. Anybody that's done big water knows that feeling when you're floating up to it, okay? And I can tell you, the closer you get to it, the louder it gets. The closer you get to it, the more of it you can see, because these rapids usually have a 0 horizon line, all right? They got, for instance, lava has a 27-foot vertical on the back side of it. So I'm up on this rock picking a line to see where I'm going to enter the rapid, okay? But when you're on the water and you're only 3 feet above the water coming into that and you can't see it, you don't have any idea, really where you're at. So my heart's beating like a big bass drum. Every time I come up on a rapid, I gotta pee. I don't know what it is with that, but I just do. And as you get closer, the speed's picking up. The wind is usually coming upriver, and some mist is coming off of those white caps. You're getting to see more and more of them. And there's no turning back now. I've gone from about probably 5 mile an hour. I'm probably up to about 12 mile an hour. And I am from here to these first tables from the first hole. And the way this lays out when I float up on it is there's a big hole on the left, there's a tongue, there's center, another hole over here, center right, and then the big hole is down the hole a little further. But I'm figuring that what I need to do is I need a downstream ferry, which is turned sideways to the hole, row backwards, because that's where I've got my power, okay? I'm gonna float right up on the hole, pull back right before I get to the hole, straighten the nose, down the tongue, push forward, miss that second hole. I'm up on the wall. I got nothing but a clean run, for the next 100 yards all the way down this rapid. Okay, so everything's going according to plan. Everything's good. I'm poised. I dig those oars in for a nice, good bite to be able to pull back. And as I do, that left oar, that upstream oar, all of a sudden shoots straight up in the air. And I turn around and look, and there is no blade attached to my oar. I'm at the top of a Class 9 rapid with 43-degree temperature, and I got 1 oar, and it's really difficult to navigate with just the 1 oar. Well, instantaneously, I don't have any time to react. Instantaneously, my boat is pulled sideways into that first hole. The wave collapses on top of me, crushes me down to the bottom of the boat. My boat immediately fills with water, and just reactionary, I just yelled, "God, we're in the shit now." Just like that, he heard me. Here, you got it? So I don't even have time to react. I'm face down in the water with this boat, and the next thing I experience is a rising sensation. And I feel my boat starting to rise. And it's unmistakable, and I, groundhog my head up, look around a little bit or whatever, and my boat continues to come up, and it was as if 2 large hands came underneath my boat. It picked it up, it took it out of the hole, and it placed it in a place of neutrality behind and left of the hole, and the water was perfectly calm. And I'm sitting there, and the water's gushing out of my boat, and nothing's happening. Okay, I've expected that I'm tossed out of the boat by now. The boat's flipped. I'm washing. I'm already 50 yards downstream, trying to get people's attention, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm in the calm of the storm. From me to you, the water is raging. It's still loud, okay, but I am really not hearing anything at that particular point. It's just quiet. And I reach over and I take my broken oar out of the lock and I set it in the boat and pull my spare oar out, drop it in, and still I'm just hovering in this duck pond. It's just perfectly calm. And I don't know what's up with that, but I look and it's like, okay, well, if I just push my boat back into the current here, I'll be able to ride this wave train all the way to the bottom, no harm, no foul. And so I do. And it happens just like that. I get to the bottom and I am excited. I am trying to get other people's attention. It's like, did you guys see what just happened? I nearly died. I could have died, but they're not paying any attention. They're reorganizing the gear on their boat or watching the next, boat or, run or whatever. And I'm trying to gather myself, just trying to comprehend, the events of the last few minutes. And I look out into the river in front of me and I see an object. It's my blade. And it literally floats right up and just kisses the front of my boat. I climb up to the front. I grab the oar or the blade. I set it back in my boat, and I look up and I say, "Very funny, grandfather."
Thank you, Mark. Well, when Mark isn't eating his peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwiches, yuck. He designs customs homes in the local area. I guess not. It's an acquired taste, I think. Enjoys spending time with his 2 kids, his 2 stepkids, and his 7 grandkids. Mark, we learned the other day, is a cult survivor. And a very well-known one, too. But that's another story. He says he's taught more college than he attended and takes his windshield time or road trips very, very seriously. So thanks again, Mark, for the great story. Appreciate it. So our next storyteller is Lee Reeves.